You're listening to STP Radio. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of STP Radio, where we get to talk to all sorts of cool people in the STP community. And particularly joining me today is Brad Johnson, the VP of Product Marketing and Business Development at SOASTA. And Brad, how are you?
I'm great, Mark. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, again, it's always good. Our last conversation was really kind of cool because we were digging into what you were presenting even in Denver. But now we have a whole new sponsorship coming for STPCON 2015. So thank you very much for that. And I'd like to talk more about what's really happening at SOASTA in 2015. So as folks end up coming into the conference, they'll kind of get an idea as to what's hot and cool and exciting in the SOASTA world.
Sure. And super excited to be sponsoring STP again, and stepping up, just because we really see the whole STP community stepping up. So we just want to make sure we are right there with this vibrant community as it grows.
As it grows, as we grow and grow. That's very good.
For sure.
Yes, and speaking of that, so to dig into, I noticed this big thing in SOASTA, and SOASTA's been around since maybe it's got to be 7-8 years now, almost.
Yep.
And with a recent change, I think it was around January, we saw this great new tagline, which is "Performance is everything." Now, you're talking to a performance geek myself, so I already know that performance is everything.
Of course, right?
But I have sort of a technical view of why that is a reality and what's happening with technology and stuff. But how did you guys? What was behind kind of the choice, your choice, to bring this new idea, this new message into this new year in particular for SOASTA?
Well, you know what? That's a great segue because, we invented cloud testing, in fact, in 2008 when cloud computing came out. And so, as a load testing platform, that's evolved into lots of different things. But when you break out of this tech world that we all live in and start talking about what our customers or our company's end users are focused on, they don't make a distinction between latency or functionality or security, right? They look at everything as performance. And so as we look at user expectations in and around technology, performance is everything, because how fast things are, how rapidly you get results, how easy it is to navigate through an interface is what all businesses are concerned about optimizing for their end users. So we're boiling it down to how does an end user look at their experience in any system? And by the way, the expectations from their home browser and their work interface and their mobile browser and their tablet really is becoming, the expectation is becoming that they all should be the same. And so we've really taken it from an end user perspective that performance is everything, right? If this app doesn't perform well, I have options. And so as we talk to our customers who are optimizing these experiences for their customers, it's just resonated that, performance is everything. So let's figure out, how do we optimize performance? How do we make it a continuous approach?
Was there an experience that came as you guys introduced touch test and really entered into more functional automation as well as the functional testing realm, where functional and performance start to overlap?
Yeah,
and
thanks.
Is that kind of where the blend? Hey guys, we can't think about functional without thinking about performance. You can't think about performance without thinking about functional.
Yeah, that's a perfect entry into exactly what we've seen. So when you talk about functional testing, for instance, right? Very traditionally, if you think about functional testing all the way back to client server days, and I would imagine that 80% of the listeners don't even remember that.
Maybe not.
Functionality was simply, does it work? Yep. Does it work right? Right? Is this button, does it deliver the right results? And, do I get a fail when I try to put numbers where they're supposed to be letters, right? Functionality was pretty well defined. Mobile changes everything. And so as soon as we got into the mobile test automation space 3 years ago and started talking about mobile test automation, the intersection of performance on the functionality of an application became critical. So when you look at, now I want to make sure that when I input a piece of data into a UI on a native mobile device, and the response for that data is dependent on a back end, which most mobile apps are today, and almost every enterprise mobile app is.
Certainly.
Functionality is not necessarily just did I get the result back, right? It's how quickly did I get the result back. So not only do I have to make sure that the results appear in the UI correctly, I have to make sure that when the back end is saturated with users, I don't know how to say this, my functional user experience isn't affected.
Isn't compromised by increased latency in one particular component or something like that.
Correct. So exactly. So my mobile testing, my mobile functional testing must include what's the impact of performance, what's the impact of latency on that functional test. So we're seeing a lot more people creating really hybrid tests that allow you to measure both those things at the same time.
Right. And so to some extent, like you say, it's been about 3 years for touch test and really bringing cloud test and touch test together, and the experience in the industry being, well, we've really got this great functional stuff. We really have this great performance stuff in the SOASTA suite. The idea then in 2015 is that there's some really cool new things coming where people are like, now I'm ready. I can see this overlap. I can see it happening. If you can share a little bit of what are the hot, cool things that you're seeing that SOASTA is going to be going after this year?
Yeah, well, it's very interesting because SOASTA has been in the middle of cloud computing, mobile, the evolution of mobile development and mobile applications, and big data,
right?
And so as a marketing guy, it's kind of a dream and a bane of my existence, because we are truly a cloud computing, mobile, big data company. But none of those, at the end of the day, are why customers come to SOASTA with their problems.
Right.
Those things are how we solve the problems. What cloud test users quickly realize is that the secret to what we do in load testing, which is any scale, distributed users, and real-time information, the secret to that is this in-memory analytics engine that we've had from the beginning of our company.
Right.
As a matter of fact, it's been there, through 4 companies of our entire engineering team, because that's what they specialize in. So we have big data scientists who've built a performance-oriented analytics platform,
right?
And that powers cloud test. It also powers touch test, and it enables us to rapidly analyze what's going on during a functional test.
Right.
And then 2 years ago, or a little more than 2 years ago, we brought real user measurement to market, and again, it lived right on top of that analysis engine. And so the things that number one, we've always been a big data company, because getting end-to-end performance results to your eyeballs in 3 seconds during a load test required big data analytics, right?
Yeah.
So when we coupled that with our real user measurement product and started collecting data, we very quickly realized that we needed not only this real-time capability, we needed the ability to dig into this terabytes of data that's being collected to come to some business conclusions. So one of the most exciting things we brought out this year was a capability that we call Data Science Workbench. And what Data Science Workbench enables is companies to look at every piece of real user measurement data, in addition to all kinds of third-party data sources, like from Telium or maybe Google Analytics, maybe other third-party sources, and come up with questions for the Data Science Workbench to answer. And some of the best answers we've received are from that data are, what's the value of a millisecond? And so when you look at, let's say you're looking at, I'd use one of our, essentially every one of the top 25 retailers have abandoned what they've been using or added to what they've been using to get insight about their real users over the last 2 years. So we've got great cross section of retailers and financial services and other companies. And so one of these retailers was trying to figure out, well, where in the world do I optimize for performance, right? And so what they looked at is, well, okay, I noticed that in one particular region of the country, my bounce rate is okay at whatever it was, 3 seconds.
Sure.
But in another segment of the country, I have users abandoning their, or bouncing off the site or abandoning their transactions at 2.9 seconds. And so okay, I should probably focus on optimizing right there. But I'm looking at 1/10 of a second. Right.
Yeah.
And how do I determine, is that worth anything? Well, if you have all of the data and you have, business knowledge about, how much is the value of a transaction, right? And then so if you're losing X number of transactions per second, well, maybe you'll have a good idea of what the value of that second is, and in this case, what's the value of a 1/10 of a second?
Sure.
Well, these guys were actually able to quantify the value of that 1/10 of a second to that set of users to about $80 million a year.
Oh my God.
And so that's the kind of question you get answered when you have all of the data. So that's what the data that's collected from real users can provide you.
Yeah,
we're definitely focused there.
You can imagine, if you're a longtime load tester and you don't have that financial concept within not only your brain while you're doing your testing, it's not in your objectives, it's rarely in the specifications or requirements that you're headed in your test objectives. I think at the same time you're connecting the circles between RUM and pre-production or even production cloud tests. So cloud tests and the data science workbench, the RUM part, Impulse, so that they're being brought together into that common analytics repository. So you can not miss out on the opportunity of, well, I ran my little test, but I have no idea what the numbers are for the impact of the business.
Exactly. And I don't think you've heard this, but this is something that I think it should be, hopefully it's going to make repercussions through the load testing industry. Mm-hmm. We have made real user measurement a feature of Cloud Test.
It's built in.
So it's included with your Cloud Test entitlement, right? So whether you're an on-demand customer where we run the test for you,
right,
or whether you're running Cloud Test in your own data center, or we're hosting it for you, whatever,
yeah,
Impulse is included. And the reason being is that one of the first use cases that we've developed for our data science workbench is a performance test plan. So what RUM allows you to do is identify your peak second. And one thing that I think you'll like as a performance geek is one thing we validated through the last holiday season is that many of our customers had peak hours and peak minutes that were different from the time period when they had their peak second.
Oh yes.
And so, some had peak seconds in the U.S. on Thanksgiving, right?
Yep.
And while they had peak hours and peak minutes the day after on Black Friday.
Yep.
What we do by including Impulse is it's very simple. Let's say you're going to run a test and you've never done real user monitoring. Well, if you got a test planned for 2 weeks out or 3 weeks out,
mm-hmm,
we want you to get a beacon implemented on your website now. And what you'll then collect are what are your most common browsers? What are your most common means of mobile access? What are your most critical regions? Where are your peak seconds of traffic? What are your peak? Which are your key click paths through your site?
Yep.
And to that point, I want to make one of the. I'm going to probably give a bunch of guys a bunch of ideas right now. We discovered through the retail season there was a massively untested click path on many retail sites, and maybe I'll quiz you. What do you think it was? Every retail site has a click path with just a couple clicks that turned out to be 40 or 50% of the traffic on many retail sites.
You got me. We went down the customer support angle. We went down like store locations.
Yeah. Okay. This is what's I may be giving up something here. It is go to cart and check out.
Just jump directly to the cart.
Right. Because we've been there before.
Oh, there you go.
Right. I filled my cart a week ago. And now I've done my comparison shopping. I've done everything else I wanted to do. Now I'm just going to go right back to that site, go right to my cart and buy.